Hi, I'm Mabh Savage. I'm an author and a journalist. I write for paganpages.org and I'm the author of Pagan Portals, Celtic Witchcraft, and also my older book, A Modern Celt, Seeking the Ancestors. I have a big interest in Celtic mythology, and the path that I follow is it's quite eclectic, but it's mainly nature based. I like to get out and about and connect with nature. Um, at this time, sort of approaching winter solstice, it does become a little bit trickier with the weather and everything. But I'm lucky enough to have a pretty nice garden which gets some good visitors. We've had squirrels, we've had all sorts of birds, and we've had a couple of foxes in and out as well, so I'm lucky in that sense. But one of the things I wanted to talk about with you guys today is the fact that I suffer from depression and anxiety, and especially the anxiety can get quite crippling to the point at which it can sometimes stop me making that magical connection with nature, with myself, with my chosen deities. It can really get in the way. One of the ways that anxiety manifests for me is sort of crippling self-doubt and second guessing myself and not being able to focus on what it is I actually want to do. I just get that rabbity voice in the back of my head that tells me what I can't do, which I'm sure a lot of you find very familiar. I'm going to start by reading a short piece that I posted online last year, but I resurrected it again a few weeks ago for Pagan Pages, simply because it seems quite relevant at the moment, because my anxiety has been up and down quite a lot, and I have found it difficult to connect to sort of magical energies around me in the same way as I did when I was first writing the article last year. So this is just a short piece that I wrote called Anxiety versus Meditation. I'm getting back into meditation this month. I'm fortunate enough to be involved with groups of spiritually minded people who are far more organised than I and can arrange structured workings. Without this kick in the bum, I struggle to grant myself the time needed to clear and declutter my messy mind space. It's strange, isn't it, how we can work so much harder for others than we can work solely for ourselves, or is that just me? Anyway, I've done my first proper meditation in months, and it was wild, intense, and full of vivid imagery that almost immediately led to poetry. This makes me happy, but now I've got the fear. What if tomorrow I can't do it? What if I can't zone out or centre myself? Because it does happen. Sometimes I just can't let go. I sit and breathe, focus, refocus, unfocus, and I can't let go of the outer world and slip into my own inner consciousness. The anxiety that I won't be able to let go, of course, makes this all the more likely to happen. Anxiety is a crippling, horrible force, and when it's coupled with the fear of failure, it can leave you vibrating like a spinning top, dizzy and feeling useless. So how can we step past that anxiety into a calm space to let the magic happen? How can I calm my mind in order to calm my mind? I don't really have solid answers. I launch myself into what I'm doing and I hope for the best. Only one session in and already I'm spinning and looking for what might go wrong, when everything went so right today, which doesn't make any sense. I should be proud that despite my anxiety, I've managed my first session with success. The 20 minutes or so before work left me bright and alert for the day and excited for the following sessions. I should be giving myself a high five. One day, perhaps, I'll stop looking for cracks in the glass that just aren't there. And that's how I finished that piece, sort of in a state of, well, I don't know how to stop myself feeling like that, because the thing is certainly with my particular type of anxiety, and I'm sure a lot of other people find this, is that No matter how successful you are at doing something, the anxiety still comes back and says, but you might not be able to do it that well tomorrow. You might not be able to do it that well in 6 weeks' time. What's the point in even doing it well now when you're eventually going to fail? You know you're going to fail. You know you're going to do it wrong. And just even if you're doing really well at the time, just having that thought in your head going, no, you're going to fail, it can actually stop you doing the thing that you're doing right there and then. It's like a vice that can just grip you and make you just freeze and think, well, what is the point? Because it's not anybody else's voice. It's not like, oh, it's the voice of somebody you don't care about or whose opinion doesn't matter. It's your own voice. And although in some ways you're sort of telling yourself, well, you don't matter, so why should you even listen to your own opinion? Deep down, you know that you do matter, which is great because you've got to have some self-worth. But it's a vicious cycle, because if you have that piece of self-worth and you respect your own opinion and you have some self-love, then as soon as yourself starts telling you that you are going to fail, you do believe yourself. Even if it's only a little bit, even if it's only 1%, that 1% can actually prevent you making that magical connection. So how do I get past it? Well, there's a few different things. One thing is family. I'm lucky enough to have a boyfriend who, although he's not pagan himself, he's very understanding, and he literally just gives me whatever time and space I need. So if I say to him, like, okay, it's Monday night, I'm going to go do some meditation upstairs, he's like, that's fine. I'll play on PlayStation, I'll do whatever, and he just leaves me to it. And it might be that I disappear for an hour and I come back and I'm like, yeah, that were rubbish, I didn't get anything done. Or it might be that I disappear for 20 minutes and come back and it's wonderful, I've had a great session and it's fine. What I do is I'll record, I'll make a note. I've got a lovely notebook that my friend got me for my birthday with little elephants on it, and I try and make notes of how my session's gone, so I can sort of try and keep a diary of when my anxiety is at its worst. Sometimes it does ebb and flow with the phases of the moon. Not always. I certainly can't rely on it, unfortunately, but sometimes I can find that, particularly around the full moon and the new moon, I get that sort of vibratory, very close to the edge anxiety where I know I'm going to need a little bit of extra focus, or a bit more time, or to create a quieter space. Sometimes what I find is that absolute quiet doesn't help. Sometimes if it's just me in a silent room, that's when the chittery voices in the back of my mind start chelping more than any other time. So those are the times when I might actually reach for a recorded guided meditation, when it's just one person's voice that you can focus on and you're truly listening to and truly concentrating on what they are saying to you. Then that fills your mind and it stops those little niggly voices in the back of your head getting to you as much. They might be there before and they might come niggling back afterwards. But what I find anyway personally is that during that session, during that guided session where I'm following the path that's being laid out by the voice on the recording, I will actually get a lot out of that, and I'll be able to zone out, and I'll be able to, although I'm following the path that's laid out by them, I will see my own imagery and I will have my own visions, and when I come out of it I've got a lot to write down. I'll write down the imagery, I'll write down the feelings, any smells, sensations that I had during the guided meditation, and the sense of achievement from that starts to override those feelings of self-doubt and those feelings of, oh, well, what are you doing this for? You're not getting anything out of it. Because as soon as I can see that I physically have got something out of it and I have got something to show for it, it's like it's tipping the scale. So you've got the anxiety on one side of your scale sort of trying to drag things down, but when you put like your little achievements and in the other side, and eventually, even though they might only be small, if you've got enough little achievements in there, they will start to swing the balance in the other direction and help you feel more positive. And more connected, moving away from just meditation and into sort of seasonal connection. I do try and get outside as much as possible. One of the problems with this is that when my anxiety is really bad, I don't want to leave the house, like, at all. I get social anxiety. I don't want to risk being around people. I won't answer the telephone. I would like to talk to people. Thankfully, we have moved this year to a house with a better outdoor space. We had a small garden at the old space, but it wasn't really very private. And although I would go out and sit in the garden sometimes and chill out, you kind of felt like people, it was very easy for people to see in and over the fence, walking past and stuff. But the house that we've moved into now, it's a long, sloping back garden with a lot of space in. So even if I just sit outside the back door, so I've literally taken one step outside and sat down, I can sit there quietly and I can see birds coming in and out of the garden. I can hear the birch leaves whispering in the wind above my head. We get squirrels that will come in. They run up and down the bird feeders. They run up and down the trees. At the moment, they're eating the last few windfalls from the next door neighbour's pear tree. So they've been coming in and grabbing them and stuffing their little furry faces. And we've had even the odd fox come in, which obviously scares the squirrels off. But yeah, we get foxes, we get hedgehogs. And it really is, it's that type of special time where you can sit and just take yourself out of yourself and just observe what is going on around you in nature. And I find that is very soothing, to just remember that although we each are the centre of our own universe. I know people say, oh, well, you're not the centre of the universe, but we are, really. We are the centre of our own universe. Everything does revolve around us as far as our impact on the world. We are fully aware that everything we do has consequences, and especially when you're anxious, you become hyper aware of everything that you do, second guessing yourself, every action, every word, rehashing old conversations that you may have had. But when you just stop and watch the world pass you by, watch creatures going about their daily lives, foraging for food, scrabbling to survive, when you observe that, it makes you remember that you are just one little connection in the web of life, and there are strands between you and all these other creatures, all the plants, every blade of grass. You are absolutely intrinsic, but it isn't all about you. There is so much else going on, and it can be really, really therapeutic to remember that. And also, not just remembering your place in the web of life, but finding that connection again and being able to sit quietly and stretch out your sense of energy and self and touch the energy of the life around you, and sort of not just see the fox strolling across the back garden, but actually feel that sense of what it would be like to be that four-legged creature, that scavenger, or the squirrel shooting up the tree and scrabbling for nuts, or the blue tit flying from feeder to feeder, making sure it's got enough food for winter. To have empathy with these creatures is to be as human as you can be. I think it's such a magical thing and such a spiritual thing to try and understand the different ways that different creatures live. If my depression is getting pretty bad, sometimes it can be like a wall goes up that completely cuts me off from not just the people around me, but the connections. Like I was saying, that feeling of being part of a web of energy or a web of life. Sometimes if that wall goes up, it's almost like someone's taken scissors and cut those strands, and there can be times where I just don't feel anything at all. So what I've started quite recently is something called a happiness jar. Now, this was actually recommended to me by a therapist that I was seeing last year, but it took a while for me to sort of get the conviction to actually start doing this. Now, the concept's really simple. The idea is that you don't wait until you're feeling depressed. What you actually do is, when you're happy, like really happy, you write down what it is that's made you happy, or what you're happy about, or what's going on at the time. Write it on a bit of paper and you stick it in a jar. It's just got, I don't know, you probably can't see on there, but it's just got happiness etched on the top there. As you can see, it's quite a recent addition. There's not a lot in there at the moment, but the idea is that when you're feeling that low and like there's no connection to anything, in my case, or that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, or worse, that the light at the end of the tunnel is an oncoming train, you take your happiness jar and you pull out a piece of paper from inside, and you have a little look, and it's just to try and evoke those memories that made you happy. And even though you might not feel happy now, because depression can be all consuming, it reminds you that you are capable of feeling happy. And that can be really important. When you're really depressed, you can't just cheer up and you can't just snap out of it. But just to be reminded that it isn't permanent, that you are capable of happiness, is actually a really powerful thing, and it's really magical in its own way. So, for example, I can't actually remember what's on here. So I've got a Tuesday here, and let's have a look. Nathan tuning a guitar I've got here. So that's my little boy. So yeah, I think he got into a bit where he's learning to play guitar, and he decided to have a go at tuning it himself, and I remember just feeling really proud of him. So I wrote that down at the time. I'll see what else I've got here. So what's this one? Oh, I've just put bird song and sunshine. So that's pretty vague, but I do have those moments. I mean, you probably, quite a lot of people have had that moment where you just sat and the birds start singing, and it's just like nothing you've ever heard before sometimes. So that is a really magical thing as well. What else have I got here? So I've just got day off with Nathan here. Not much more detail there, but yeah, they are few and far between with school and work. So yeah, that would have been nice. I've got let's have a look. Oh, here we go. This is a nice one. I was asked to call a quarter for my friends. It was a reaffirming of their hand fasting vows, and they asked me and my partner to call one of the quarters, and I remember just being really, really honoured. So I wrote that down. So that was really important to me. And let's have a look. Oh, this was my book getting in the top 10 on Amazon. So yeah, pretty chuffed about that. That's not blatant marketing. That's genuinely on there. So yeah, so they're quite. I mean, it's quite a diverse range of stuff there. So there's like practical stuff on there that makes me happy. There's family stuff. There's stuff to do with friends. There's stuff to do with my spirituality, and it's whatever's important to you at the end of the day. I mean, you might find that your happiness jar is just full of times when you got a good night's sleep. I mean, I know that's one of the things I really struggle with when my anxiety is bad. I'll be exhausted and I'll think, oh, I'll sleep so well tonight, and then I drop into bed and like almost immediately it's like every tiny thought that you've had all day of things that you needed to do or needed to sort out are just bang in your head right now. Oh, 2 a.m. Yep, you're going to have to think about this right now. So yeah, lack of sleep can be the worst thing. And when you've got, especially magical commitments, if you said you're going to do some work for somebody, or if you're going to write a ritual, or if you're going to perform a ritual, or if you've got some private worship or some group worship to do, anything along those lines is so difficult if you are suffering from a lack of sleep, because you do need to focus. It's hard work and it takes a lot of energy sometimes, and your energy has got to be there and it's got to be connected. And when you're not sleeping properly, sometimes you have to say no. You have to turn around and say, I'm really sorry, I know I've made this commitment to do this, but I physically can't. I'm not well enough, I haven't slept enough, and my energy is all over the place, I'm not going to be in the right frame of mind or frame of magical self to perform in a way which is going to be beneficial. At the end of the day, if you go into a situation where you're involving yourself with spirits or with deities, or with the fae or fairy types, or even just, you know, universal energies or healing, and your body is out of whack, or your mind is out of whack, or the two are out of whack with each other, you're not going to be doing, your intent and your will is not going to be synced up with the energies that's coming from you. So the safest thing that you can do is say, sometimes it's a shame, but just to say, no, I'm sorry, I just can't this time. But what I would hope to find, what I found in groups that I've worked in, thankfully, is that people will turn around and go, that's absolutely fine. And you've done the right thing by saying that. And I really, really hope that most magical practitioners would understand that and would be able to say, do you know what, bang on, you've done the right thing, you've been honest, you've said you're not up to it at the moment, and that's the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is take that time for yourself, you know, try and either, you know, get into a space where you can do it, or simply do something else. And I think the key is not to beat yourself up about it. And I think that's really difficult, when, especially when you suffer from a mental illness, especially of the types that fall under depression, where you can feel incredibly low or disconnected, and anxiety, where you can feel like everything you do is under scrutiny. So it can feel like the worst thing in the world to have, in your own eyes, let someone down. So one of the most important skills that you can learn is to forgive yourself. And I know it's really hard. There are no easy solutions with that. But what I'm going to keep doing is I'm going to keep writing down my happy moments and keeping them in my jar. Hopefully get this jar a little bit more full than it is at the moment. I'm going to keep writing down the times when I do have good connections and when I do have a good magical presence. And I'm going to keep observing the world around me. I'm going to keep observing nature and animals and the plants around me. I'm going to keep writing my herbal columns. And I know my anxiety isn't going to go away overnight, and I know I'm still going to have bad times. But I think as long as I can just keep doing a little bit, even if it's not every day, every other day or every week, if I can keep seeing in this book that there's a part of me that is constantly connecting to the things that I am passionate about, then I'm winning. It's not winning. And I think that's the most important thing of all.